Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to take these massive foundational topics, really just distill the absolute essence of them.
And deliver that concentrated insight straight to you.
Exactly. And today, we are really sinking our teeth into the world of food and cooking.
Yeah.
It's a topic, that everyone interacts with, but I think very few of us fully understand the chemistry, the history, the technique behind it all.
And it's so much more than just following steps in a recipe. It's a universal language, really. It connects us, regardless of geography. And it does require a structured understanding.
Right.
So our mission today is to give you, the learner, that comprehensive progressive structure. We're going to move systematically, starting right in your own kitchen.
Okay.
With the basic science, and then expand all the way out to global culinary philosophy.
We had just an incredible stack of sources for this dive, and they didn't just give us dictionary definitions.
Yeah.
They provided the logic of the kitchen. It allowed us to move from the simple act of, say, boiling and frying, all the way to these complex professional techniques, essential gear, and the deep storied history behind iconic dishes.
And that structure is, it's non-negotiable if you want to become a truly well-informed cook. By the end of this deep dive, you shouldn't just know how to follow a recipe, you should understand the why. Why does the temperature matter? Why do ingredients react the way they do? And why does the history of a dish dictate its structure?
Absolutely. And we have some seriously surprising, non-intuitive facts lined up.
Yeah.
We're going to clarify once and for all the difference between the Maillard reaction and simple caramelization.
The two pillars of browning. So important.
And we're going to finally solve that great confusion between braising and stewing.
Yes, and we'll reveal the beautiful symbolism behind the classic margherita pizza. It's actually a deeply intentional political statement on a plate. We'll get into the physics of why letting meat rest is essential for flavor and tenderness, and how modern tech like the air fryer has basically just miniaturized a professional convection oven for your countertop.
This is going to be good.
This deep dive is designed to transform the way you approach food. So let's start with the absolute fundamentals, but let's look for the nuance, not just the definition.
Okay, part one, kitchen foundations. So we have to start with the foundational vocabulary, but instead of just defining something like boiling, let's jump straight to the thermal control that I think really separates an amateur from a confident cook. If you can master how heat and liquid interact in these basic techniques, you can approach almost any recipe with real confidence.
Precisely. Let's just acknowledge that everyone knows what boiling is. Cooking fully submerged in liquid at that vigorous rolling point of 100 degrees Celsius or 212 Fahrenheit.
Right.
But the real lesson, the real skill is knowing when to drop below that point.
Okay, so if boiling is full aggression, then what's simmering? You're saying that's more like controlled intensity.
Exactly. Simmering means the liquid is just below boiling. You'll see these small bubbles forming and rising, but the surface isn't violently disrupted.
And why is that so vital? Especially for things like stocks and sauces.
Well, that low, gentle heat is crucial because it allows flavors to meld together slowly, without rapid evaporation or, the emulsification breaking. If you boil a stock, for instance, you cloud it, you force the proteins to release way too quickly.
Yes.
But if you simmer it, you extract flavor gently and you keep that liquid beautifully clear.
Okay, that makes sense. So moving from liquid to fat, let's talk frying. Most people think deep frying, right?
Yeah.
But the critical sort of non-intuitive thing here is the science of the fat itself, the smoke point.
Yes, that's where the deep dive really comes in. Frying is just cooking in hot oil or fat. Whether you shallow fry with a little oil or deep fry where it's fully submerged, you have to match your oil to your temperature. The smoke point is simply the temperature at which an oil starts to break down and smoke.
And that's bad.
Very bad. It releases free radicals and creates these really unpleasant burnt flavors. So for high heat deep frying, you need oils with a high smoke, point-like vegetable, canola, or peanut oil.
So my fancy extra virgin olive oil is not for frying chicken.
Absolutely not. Olive oil has a lower smoke point. It's usually reserved for lower heat sautéing or, just finishing a dish.
That makes the choice of oil just as important as the temperature dial. Okay, let's talk dry heat. Baking. That's using dry heat in an oven for things like bread and cakes. What's the goal here versus, say, roasting?
Baking is all about structure change. It's about setting starches. It requires a really consistent, controlled, dry environment. Roasting, which is similar, typically uses higher temperatures and is usually for meats and larger, denser vegetables. The goal in roasting is very much about achieving that aggressively caramelized exterior.
That golden brown crust.
Exactly. That crust adds a huge depth of flavor.
And the flavor profile changes entirely when we move to direct, open heat. So grilling or barbecuing.
Oh, grilling is fantastic. It's high-intensity, radiant heat applied directly to the surface from below. This is what creates those desirable smoky flavors and the intense searing that gives you grill marks.
Right.
And the key difference here is the fuel source charcoal wood smoke. It often contributes directly to the flavor profile.
Okay, and for quick stovetop cooking, my personal favorite, sautéing. That quick cook in a small amount of oil over high heat.
Sautéing, it comes from the French word sauté, which means to jump, and it's defined by speed and movement.
To jump, I like that.
It's all about fast, light browning, and critically, making sure you have maximum contact between the food and the hot pan surface. If you don't stir frequently, you risk burning.
But if you stir too gently.
You won't get that even browning. It's a fine balance.
Okay, and finally, let's revisit steaming. It's often praised for preserving nutrients, but is there a purely culinary reason beyond health that steaming is so preferred in certain Asian cuisines?
Absolutely. Beyond nutrient retention, steaming offers unparalleled moisture control. It's the perfect method for delicate items like fish or dim sum because it cooks them evenly without jostling them around.
So we get a tender, moist texture.
A texture that's impossible to achieve with boiling or frying. It keeps the inherent purity of the ingredient completely intact.
All right, now that we know how to apply the heat, we need the right tools. Our sources really stress that having the right equipment isn't just about efficiency. It's about safety, consistency, and at the end of the day, better results.
And we have to start with cutting essentials. If you invest in only 3 knives, make them these. The versatile chef's knife for chopping and slicing, the smaller paring knife for delicate work like peeling, and the serrated bread knife.
Which is for more than just bread, right?
Oh, yeah. Anything with a hard crust or a soft interior, think tomatoes. A serrated knife is perfect.
But let's hit on the crucial safety point, knife quality versus knife maintenance. Why is a sharp knife paradoxically so much safer than a dull one?
It sounds so counterintuitive, but it's absolutely crucial kitchen wisdom. A sharp knife requires less physical force to cut through food. When you use a dull knife, you have to push harder.
Right, you're muscling it.
Exactly. And that increases the chance the blade will slip off the ingredient, a carrot, potato, and onto your hand. A sharp knife gives you precision and control.
And just as crucially, we have to talk about cutting board safety. Cross-contamination is a fundamental risk. Why is using dedicated cutting boards just non-negotiable?
Because microscopic organisms from raw meat and poultry can easily transfer to surfaces. It's that simple. So you dedicate one board strictly for raw animal proteins, they're often color-coded to help you remember, and a separate one for vegetables and prepared foods.
And that prevents bacteria from ever meeting ingredients that won't be cooked later, like salad greens.
It's a simple rule with massive health implications.
Okay, moving to the stove. We need the right vessels for these techniques.
Correct. For sauces and boiling small quantities, the saucepan is vital. For sautéing and frying, a heavy-bottomed frying pan or skillet is essential.
And the material of that pan matters, doesn't it?
It matters a lot. Cast iron is great for high heat and retention. Stainless steel offers even heating and is really responsive. And of course, you need a large stock pot for massive batches of soup or pasta.
Now, for precision, especially in baking, the humble measuring cups and measuring spoons are absolute necessities.
I cannot overstate the importance of precision in baking. I mean it. Cooking is often an art of adjustment. You can improvise. Baking is an unforgiving science.
I've learned that the hard way.
When you're dealing with leavening agents or specific ratios, being off by even a small percentage can completely ruin the texture and structure. Using dry measuring cups for flour and liquid measuring cups for wet ingredients, it just ensures consistency every single time.
And our kitchens are getting more high-tech. Modern appliances offer a ton of efficiency.
They do. The blender for smooth textures, the food processor for quick mass prep, and of course the powerful stand mixer for heavy-duty kneading and creaming.
Yet the foundation is always built on the simple stuff.
Always. A sturdy whisk for emulsifying sauces, a flexible spatula for flipping, tongs for safe, precise gripping, and a reliable colander for draining and washing. These are the unsung workhorses of the kitchen.
So once we have the tools, we need the raw material, the pantry staples. These form the hidden foundation of, well, almost all global cuisine, right?
They really do. If you stock these items and understand their role, you're ready for a vast majority of recipes, both basic and complex.
Let's start with the dry goods, and let's focus on how they function. So, flours and sugars.
Right. You need all-purpose flour for structure and thickening, maybe some whole wheat flour. But let's look at sugar.
Okay, why do we need granulated sugar, brown sugar, and powdered sugar? They're all just sweet, right?
Not quite. They serve distinct textural roles. Granulated sugar provides bulk and controls how much a cookie spreads. Brown sugar is just granulated sugar with molasses added.
So it adds moisture.
It adds moisture and a slightly chewier texture to baked goods. And powdered sugar contains cornstarch, so it dissolves quickly and prevents clumping. Perfect for dusting or making smooth icings. Texture is everything here.
Next up is fat, essential for flavor transfer and heat management. Our sources suggest thinking about oils based on their use and their smoke point, like we just discussed.
That's right. Olive oil is king for dressings and Mediterranean flavor, but it's terrible for high heat. Vegetable oil or canola oil, that's your go-to for neutral high heat cooking.
And what about something like coconut oil?
That's for specific flavors. It's often necessary for certain Asian and tropical recipes, and it imparts both fat and a distinct flavor profile.
Okay, the absolute core of seasoning, salt and pepper. They're non-negotiable. But what's the actual difference between sea salt, kosher salt, and table salt in terms of how you use them?
The difference is primarily texture and your control over the measurement. Table salt is very fine, it's dense, often iodized, and it's difficult to control by the pinch.
Right, it just dumps out of your fingers.
Exactly. Kosher salt and sea salt have larger, flakier crystals. Cooks prefer them because you can easily measure them by feel by pinching, and they dissolve more slowly. This allows you to season in layers and taste the impact as you go.
And the backbone of global savory cuisine, aromatics.
The combination of onions and garlic. It is foundational. It's the initial flavor matrix. When you sauté them correctly, they release sulfur compounds that react with the fat, creating the savory base, the sofrito, that so many dishes are built on.
So their presence in a recipe signals a promise of depth.
A huge promise of depth.
And to build on that base, you need a smart spice cabinet.
Beyond the basics, think globally. Dried oregano, basil, and thyme for Italian and French cooking. Paprika and cumin for warmth and smokiness in Middle Eastern or Latin American cooking. If you have those flavor vectors covered, you can adapt very quickly.
And for baking, the chemical structure, baking agents and base.
Baking powder and baking soda are your leavening agents. Baking soda needs an acid like buttermilk or citrus to activate. Baking powder, on the other hand, already contains the necessary acid. It only needs moisture and heat.
Understanding that difference prevents a flat cake.
It prevents structural collapse in your final product, absolutely.
And finally, the essential savory liquid base.
Stock or broth. Keeping chicken, beef, or vegetable stock on hand is crucial. Water just dilutes flavor, stock builds it. It forms the base for virtually all soups, sauces, and many rice dishes, adding a necessary layer of umami and depth that elevates a dish instantly.
Okay, part 2. This is where we get into the mastery. Part 1 gave us the vocabulary and the tools, but now we get into the nuanced methods, the genuine cooking insights that separate a competent cook from someone who really understands the science of flavor.
This section is all about understanding why things happen in the heat. We're focusing on the chemistry and the process behind these more advanced techniques.
Let's start with the classic distinction that confuses nearly every home cook. Braising versus stewing. If both are wet, low and slow cooking methods, how do I know I'm braising my short ribs instead of accidentally stewing them? What is the single most critical difference?
That's a fantastic question. The answer is rooted in two things: how you prep it and how much liquid you use. Stewing is purely wet heat. You cut your ingredients into uniform pieces, brown them lightly, and then you submerge them completely in the cooking liquid. Think of a beef stew.
Okay, so they're swimming in it.
Exactly. The heat penetrates evenly through the liquid, which softens the meat and turns all that liquid into a thick sauce.
And braising.
Braising is a combination of wet and dry heat. It involves first searing a larger cut of meat, like a pot roast, at a high temperature to develop a crust. And then, this is crucial, it's slow cooked in a covered pot with only a small amount of liquid, maybe 1/3 of the way up the side.
So the food isn't submerged.
Not at all. The upper portion is cooked by the dry oven heat, and the covered pot tracks the steam from the liquid, which provides moisture. It's a dual process, which is why it develops such complex layers of flavor.
Moving to delicate techniques, let's look at poaching. We mentioned its gentleness, but how low is just below boiling? What are we talking about here?
We're typically talking between, say, 70 to 82 degrees Celsius. That's 160 to 180 Fahrenheit. The liquid has to be still or just barely moving.
And that gentle heat is what protects the food.
It's critical because it prevents the rapid coagulation of proteins. If you boil an egg or a piece of fish, the proteins tighten up and they squeeze out moisture, making them tough. Poaching denatures the protein slowly, preserving the food's delicate structure and all its moisture.
Then there's the fast and cold method, blanching. Why does this shock treatment work to preserve the color in, say, green beans?
Blanching is a fast two-step process. A brief boil, followed immediately by plunging the food into ice water. The rapid heat deactivates enzymes that cause vegetables to lose their color and texture, specifically, enzymes that break down chlorophyll.
And the ice water.
The ice water plunge immediately halts the cooking process. It locks in that vibrant green color and retains a crisp texture. It's perfect prep for freezing vegetables or adding them to salads.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Caramelizing versus the Maillard reaction. These terms are so often confused, but one is about sugar and the other is about, well, basically creating all savory depth in the world.
Exactly. Caramelizing is purely the thermal decomposition of sugars. When sugar hits high heat around 320 Fahrenheit or 160 Celsius, it breaks down into hundreds of new compounds, creating that sweet, nutty flavor and brown color. Think of burnt sugar or the top of a creme brulee.
So if I'm browning onions for a long time until they're sweet and jammy, is that caramelization?
Only partially. The deep, rich, savory browning you get when you sear meat or roast potatoes or brown onions comes primarily from the Maillard reaction.
Okay.
This is a complex chemical reaction that happens between amino acids, the building blocks of protein, and reducing sugars under heat. It starts at a lower temperature, around 285 Fahrenheit, and it creates thousands of diverse flavor compounds. It's the smell of baked bread, seared steak, roasted coffee.
So without the Maillard reaction, we would have no savory depth in our cooking.
None. It's that fundamental.
That distinction is huge. One creates sweet depth, the other creates savory complexity. And now for two techniques that go hand in hand for incredible sauce making, deglazing and reduction.
Deglazing is essential. After you sear or sauté meat, you're left with those intensely flavorful browned bits. It's called the fond stuck to the bottom of the pan.
Right, the stuff you're tempted to scrub off.
Don't. You add liquid wine, broth, water to that hot pan and you scrape up the fond. You're dissolving those complex Maillard compounds, and that forms the flavorful base of your sauce.
Which leads directly into reduction.
Right. Reducing is just simmering that deglazed liquid to evaporate the water. By concentrating the remaining flavor compounds, you increase the liquid's viscosity and its intensity. What was once a thin, savory broth becomes a rich, intense glaze or sauce. It's flavor concentration through controlled evaporation.
Finally, the preparatory technique of marinating. Beyond just adding flavor, what specific chemical changes is marinating designed to achieve?
Marinating involves soaking food in a seasoned liquid, often one containing an acid like vinegar or citrus or enzymes like those in pineapple or ginger.
And the acid cooks the meat, in a way.
It denatures the exterior proteins without heat. It's essentially pre-tenderizing the meat. This ensures the cooked product is more tender, and it also opens up the protein structure slightly to allow all that seasoning to penetrate deeper.
All right, let's shift gears to the fundamentals of baking precision. As we established, it's a science. So let's look at the structure of baked goods, starting with the foundation of all bread, gluten development.
Right. The physical act of kneading works the dough, and it aligns two specific proteins found in wheat flour, gliadin and glutenin. When they get hydrated, these two proteins link up to form the gluten network.
And this network is what gives bread its structure.
It gives bread its viscoelasticity, the ability to stretch, that's elasticity, and to hold its shape, that's viscosity. Without proper kneading, your dough won't trap gas, and your bread will just be dense and crumbly.
So kneading is literally engineering a flexible structure. And once that structure is built, we need the lift. That's where leavening comes in.
Correct. Proofing or rising is when you allow yeast to ferment the sugars in the dough, which produces carbon dioxide gas. This gas gets trapped within that carefully developed gluten network,
Causing the dough to expand.
and creating that light, airy texture. But the temperature of your proofing is absolutely critical.
Why does temperature control go beyond just activating the yeast?
Because fermentation isn't just about carbon dioxide for lift, it's also about flavor. Yeast produces these trace amounts of organic acids, which is what gives slow fermented breads like sourdough their complex, satisfyingly sour flavors.
So too hot and you kill that flavor.
You kill the flavor-producing activity, too cold, and the whole process just stalls. A low, slow rise maximizes flavor development right alongside the lift.
In non-yeasted baked goods like cakes and cookies, the lift often comes from mechanical action. Let's look at the key mixing techniques.
The first one is creaming. This is fundamentally about physics. You are aggressively beating fat like butter and sugar together until the mixture is light and fluffy. This process physically incorporates thousands of tiny air bubbles into the fat.
Ah, so you're trapping air.
You're trapping air, and when that mixture is heated in the oven, those trapped air pockets expand, and that provides essential lift for the cake or cookie structure.
And the opposite of that forceful mixing is the gentle necessity of folding.
Folding is a gentle technique. You use a spatula in a scooping, turning motion, and it's designed to combine light ingredients like whipped egg whites or aerated cream into a batter without deflating the delicate air structure you just worked so hard to create.
If you stir vigorously, you knock the air out.
The air is knocked out, and your souffle or your cake falls completely flat.
Finally, the cooking environment itself. We can't overstate the importance of oven heat.
Always, always preheat the oven. If the oven isn't at the right temperature when the food goes in, the leavening agents won't activate correctly and the structure won't set evenly. And you have to remember the difference between baking, consistent overall temperature, roasting, often high temperature targeting Maillard reactions, and broiling.
Which is basically grilling from above.
Exactly. It's intense, direct heat used for quick surface browning or melting.
Now, for the practical application, the kitchen wisdom distilled from years of professional cooking. These simple, high-impact tips can instantly elevate anyone's results.
I'll start with the most important rule: taste and seasoning. You absolutely must taste as you cook. It allows you to adjust in real time. But more importantly, season in layers.
What do you mean by layers?
Salt and spices dissolve and release their flavors at different rates. Adding salt to your aromatics early on will draw out moisture and deepen their flavor before you add the main protein or liquid. If you only season at the very end, the dish just tastes one-dimensional.
Okay, this one sounds simple, but it's the #1 defense against kitchen panic. Prep and planning.
You should always read the entire recipe first. Understand the flow, the timing, any unexpected steps before you even begin.
And then, mise en place.
Yes, the French term meaning everything in its place. Have all your ingredients measured, chopped, and prepped in advance. It eliminates scrambling, it prevents mistakes, and it allows you to focus purely on execution when the cooking starts.
Speaking of heat management, the #1 mistake I see when home cooks try to sauté is overcrowding the pan.
That is a critical flaw. If you put too much food in a pan, the temperature drops drastically. The moisture released from all those ingredients traps the steam.
And the food just steams instead of browning.
Exactly. You completely lose the chance for the Maillard reaction. You get gray, soggy food instead of richly seared food. Cook in batches if you have to.
And the corollary to that rule,
Yeah.
don't be afraid of high heat when you're searing.
To get that golden brown crust, especially on meat, you need high, sustained heat. Get the pan hot, add your fat until it shimmers, and then add the food. That initial intense blast is essential for developing those deep flavor compounds.
And speaking of meat, proper meat handling includes a sacred rule that is often ignored because of impatience. Let meat rest. Why is this 5 to 10 minutes so vital?
It's all about physics and internal pressure. When meat cooks, the intense heat causes the muscle fibers to contract, and that squeezes the internal moisture, the juices, to the center and the surface. If you cut into the meat immediately, those pressurized juices just rush out onto your cutting board, leaving your meat dry. Resting allows the fibers to relax and the juices to redistribute evenly.
Maximizing tenderness and flavor.
Exactly.
Okay, let's hit one specific hack the professional chefs swear by. Save your pasta water.
Absolutely. When pasta cooks, starch is released into that water. That starchy, salty liquid is liquid gold for sauces. When you add a splash of it to a sauce, the starches act as an emulsifier. They help the fat and liquid components of the sauce bind together.
So you get a richer, silkier sauce that actually sticks to the pasta.
It creates a beautiful, consistent sauce that clings perfectly.
And finally, the necessary mental shift. The mindset. The necessity of patience.
Rushing always costs you flavor. Low and slow cooking methods like braising or simmering a stock develop vastly deeper, more complex flavors because those chemical reactions need time to occur and deepen. Great cooking requires an investment of time, but the payoff in flavor is enormous.
All right, part three. Now that we have the tools and the mastery of technique, let's travel the world. Food is a story of culture, history, and, what's locally available. It's a universal language, but expressed regionally.
And in this tour, we need to focus less on just the ingredient list and more on the culinary philosophy of each region, understanding how their environment and their history shaped what they eat.
Let's start in Europe with Italian cuisine. It's defined by fierce regionalism and a philosophy built on simplicity and using high-quality local ingredients.
And its global ubiquity is thanks to two staples, pasta and pizza. And the story of Margherita pizza is fantastic because it's a political and cultural symbol.
It originated in Naples in 1889, right? Commissioned by a chef for Queen Margherita of Savoy.
Exactly. And the ingredients, tomato sauce for red, mozzarella cheese for white, and fresh basil for green, were specifically chosen to represent the colors of the newly unified Italian flag.
So it's a declaration of national identity on a plate.
Literally. And then the complexity is found in the diversity of pasta. You have these incredible, rich northern classics like layered lasagna versus southern staples like spaghetti carbonara.
Which relies solely on the starchy pasta water, eggs, cured pork, and cheese to create its creamy sauce. There's no actual cream in a real carbonara.
No cream allowed. It's a perfect emulsion.
Moving to French cuisine, the cornerstone of Western culinary tradition. Here, the philosophy is defined by classical technique and the concept of terroir.
Right. Terroir, the environment and specific soil that contributes to the unique flavor of a local product. And coq au vin chicken, braised slowly with wine, mushrooms, and bacon, is a perfect example of prioritizing low, slow technique and layered flavor development.
And their baking legacy is unparalleled. Beyond croissants and baguettes, you have the sophistication of crème brûlée.
Which is a baked custard dessert where the technique is all about controlling the temperature of the custard and then rapidly caramelizing the sugar topping with direct heat.
In Spain, we have regional specialties defined by the ingredients of the Iberian Peninsula and the social ritual of eating. Paella, originating in Valencia, is a masterful single-pan dish.
And the critical goal with paella is achieving the socarrat.
That crispy, flavorful layer of toasted rice at the bottom of the pan.
That is the prize.
And the social philosophy is best represented by tapas, these small appetizers like patatas bravas or gambas al ajillo.
Historically, they were just small saucers of food placed on top of wine glasses to keep flies out. They evolved into a style of eating based on grazing, sharing, and socializing.
And across the channel, fish and chips battered, deep-fried fish and potatoes is a British institution. And from Belgium, the Belgian waffles are distinct.
They're made with a yeast-leavened dough, not a batter, which gives them a lighter, thicker texture with those deep pockets that are just perfect for holding toppings.
Okay, let's pivot to Asia, where the culinary philosophy is often defined by balance, purity, and the complexity of aromatics. Japanese cuisine is known for precision, seasonality, and the foundational flavor of umami.
Umami, that fifth basic taste savory. It is central to Japanese cooking. Dishes like ramen, those rich, flavorful noodle soups, rely on broths built over long cooking times, using ingredients rich in glutamate, like kelp and fermented products. This deep, savory foundation is key.
And the technique of tempura, lightly battered, deep-fried seafood and vegetables, is a masterclass in clean frying.
The batter has to be kept icy cold to inhibit gluten development. This ensures that when it hits the hot oil, it creates a crisp, light shell that doesn't absorb all that oil.
Now, Chinese cuisine is incredibly diverse. You have Peking duck, famous for its impossibly crispy skin.
Achieved by carefully drying the skin before roasting. And you have dim sum, serving small, bite-sized portions, which reflects the social activity of brunch, emphasizing variety and sharing.
And Thai cuisine is built on the crucial balance of 5 key flavors: sweet, sour, salty, spicy, and bitter. How does a dish like tom yum soup achieve that complex balance simultaneously without tasting chaotic?
It's structural brilliance. They manage this through phased addition and ingredient freshness. The base might be salty and savory from fish sauce and broth, then lime juice adds sourness right at the end for brightness. Chilies provide heat.
So the goal is harmony, not a muddy blend.
Exactly. You want the palate to experience each note.
Indian cuisine is extraordinary in its use of spices, often ground and blended into complex masalas.
Indian philosophy is defined by masalas, these spice mixtures, wet or dry. Unlike many Western cuisines that rely on a few dominant herbs, Indian dishes build complexity through dozens of interacting spices.
Take biryani, for example.
A highly technical dish. Aromatic rice layered with meat or vegetables, cooked using a steaming technique called dum put, which locks in moisture and allows the spices to permeate every single grain.
Moving to Vietnamese street food, we find fantastic fusion born from a colonial legacy.
Pho is that aromatic noodle soup, built on rice noodles, herbs, and meat. But the banh mi sandwich brilliantly combines French colonialism, the baguette and pâté, with Vietnamese flavors like pork, cilantro, and pickled vegetables. It's a beautiful cultural mashup.
Korean food has rocketed into the global mainstream. Bibimbap, mixed rice, encapsulates a philosophical desire for balance and color.
It's a literal representation of mixing. The diner completes the dish by adding the spicy gochujang sauce and breaking the egg yolk, ensuring every bite is a customized blend. And Korean BBQ is fundamentally communal. It turns the cooking process into a shared, hands-on event.
Finally, the Middle Eastern favorites. Hummus and falafel represent a cuisine based on ancient, nutrient-dense staples.
Chickpeas, tahini, fresh herbs, and the rotisserie meats, shawarma or gyros. The process of slow roasting thin layers of seasoned meat on a vertical spit ensures the exterior is constantly crisping while the interior stays tender.
And the Greek version gyros famously includes tzatziki,
which cuts through the richness of the meat with its cooling yogurt and cucumber base. A perfect balance.
Now to the New World, starting with iconic American dishes, which are often defined by comfort, ingenuity, and regional differences.
Hamburgers and hot dogs are synonymous with American culture. They originated here, often fueled by the Industrial Revolution and the need for portable, affordable food.
And regional specialties showcase distinct techniques. Southern fried chicken requires a specific technique, coated in seasoned flour and deep-fried.
But the real secret is often a pre-soak in buttermilk, which tenderizes the meat due to the acid and helps that coating adhere perfectly.
And barbecue ribs, slow-cooked, using smoking, and indirect heat rely on low temperature to break down tough collagen into gelatin.
Ensuring the meat is fall off the bone tender before it's finished with that smoky sauce.
We can't forget the dessert that defines the nation, apple pie. As American as apple pie.
A filling structured by spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, encased in a flaky crust built with cold fat to prevent too much gluten development.
Heading south, Mexican cuisine is defined by the fundamental use of corn and chilies. Tacos are versatile, but the key is the balance of heat from salsa, acid from lime, and freshness from cilantro.
And a true test of freshness is guacamole, requiring perfect, creamy avocado and minimal seasoning. Enchiladas are also foundational rolled tortillas covered in chili sauce, a technique designed to soften the tortilla and impart the deep, earthy flavor of dried chilies.
And finally, South America. In Brazil, the national dish is feijoada,
a hearty black bean stew with various cuts of pork. Its origin is often traced back to the food of the enslaved population, who used inexpensive and residual cuts of meat cooked down slowly. It's a dish built on necessity and deep flavor.
And from Peru, we have ceviche. This is perhaps the ultimate example of using acid for preparation.
The raw fish is cooked or cured entirely by citrus juices, usually lime. The citric acid denatures the proteins, changing the flesh from translucent to opaque, a chemical transformation that creates firmness without ever introducing heat.
Right, part 4. We cap our culinary tour with desserts, and then we'll examine how the way we cook and eat is changing drastically in the 21st century.
Desserts are fascinating because they highlight specific regional techniques and textural preferences.
Let's start with French precision. Macarons. These are not cookies. They are delicate almond meringue shells with fillings.
And their defining feature is that unique texture. A crisp, smooth exterior surrounding a slightly chewy interior. It requires extremely precise measurement and control of the egg white structure.
Then the Italian giants. We have tiramisu, which literally translates to pick me up.
It's genius because it layers 3 different textures. The soft, coffee-soaked ladyfingers, the rich, airy mascarpone cream, and the dry dusting of cocoa.
And what's the real distinction between gelato and traditional ice cream?
Gelato uses more milk and less cream, and critically, it's churned much slower, so it incorporates less air. This results in a product that's denser, silkier, and has a more concentrated flavor. It's also served at a slightly warmer temperature, which lets the flavors hit your palate more intensely.
Austrian sophistication gives us Sachertorte, a classic chocolate cake with a distinct layer of apricot jam.
That combination of dense chocolate sponge, tart jam, and a dark chocolate glaze is a signature example of balancing richness with fruit acidity.
For deep-fried comfort, Spain has churros.
Often served with chocolate a la taza, a thick, almost pudding-like hot chocolate for dipping. It highlights a love for rich, heavy textures.
Moving east, baklava is a textural masterpiece.
It uses dozens of paper-thin layers of phyllo pastry, nuts, and a heavy soaking in honey or syrup. The technique ensures the final product is incredibly flaky and intensely sweet.
Indian desserts are often served soaked.
Gulab jamun. Soft, deep-fried dough balls, immediately soaked in rose-scented sugar syrup. The flavor complexity comes from the rose water and cardamom infused into that syrup.
And mochi from Japan.
Mochi relies on a unique process of pounding glutinous rice into a dense, incredibly chewy paste. The resulting texture, known as chewy or QQ, is highly prized in East Asia and is central to the dessert's appeal.
Okay, let's talk about modern cooking trends and sustainability. The way we approach food today reflects major societal shifts toward health, environmental awareness, and efficiency.
Let's start with conscious eating. There has been an exponential explosion in plant-based cooking. This shift is driven by a combination of personal health choices, ethical concerns, and the recognized environmental impact of industrial meat production.
And that demand has fueled massive innovation in meat alternatives like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods.
And they succeed because they focus on replicating the texture, the mouthfeel, and the Maillard-driven browning of traditional meat using proteins from plants like pea or soy.
Health and wellness have also put a huge spotlight on fermented foods.
For their probiotic benefits, absolutely. Supporting gut health. Items like kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, and kefir are now on nearly every grocery shelf.
And technology has changed efficiency dramatically. The air fryer has become ubiquitous.
Because it's essentially a powerful, miniaturized convection oven. Convection technology uses a fan to rapidly circulate superheated air, which achieves that satisfyingly crispy texture much faster and with way less oil than traditional frying.
And at the other end of the precision scale, sous vide cooking is migrating from pro kitchens to the home.
Sous vide means under vacuum. Food is sealed in bags and cooked in precisely controlled water baths. This allows for unparalleled consistency. You can cook a steak edge to edge at exactly 130 degrees, guaranteeing perfect tenderness every single time.
It takes the guesswork out.
It completely eliminates it.
And efficiency and planning define the popular trend of meal prepping.
It's a direct response to modern, busy lifestyles. By preparing full meals on the weekend, people ensure they have access to healthy, home-cooked food quickly during the week.
Ingredient focus is also broadened. We're seeing a move toward ancient grains.
Quinoa, farro, spelt, amaranth. They're gaining traction because they offer higher fiber, protein, and different nutrients than refined wheat. Chefs and home bakers are embracing them for their unique textures and nutty flavors.
And we've seen the rise of farm-to-table dining.
This movement emphasizes local, seasonal sourcing. The philosophy is that minimal travel time for ingredients maximizes freshness and supports local economies.
And we continue to see the evolution of fusion cuisine.
It's the result of globalization and migration, blending culinary traditions to create new, dynamic flavors. Think of creative mashups like Korean tacos or sushi burritos. They show that cuisine is not static, it's constantly reinventing itself.
And perhaps the most crucial modern movement is the focus on sustainability.
Zero-waste cooking is the practice of maximizing ingredient usage, using vegetable scraps for stock, turning stale bread into croutons. It's driven by the knowledge that reducing food waste is a powerful way to reduce our collective environmental footprint.
What an incredible deep dive. We started with foundational skills, clarified the essential difference between caramelization and the Maillard reaction, the cornerstone of all savory flavor, and moved through the precision of baking.
We covered the specific structural differences between braising and stewing, the necessity of mise en place to prevent kitchen disasters, and the cultural and symbolic importance of dishes like the flag-colored margherita pizza. The value here is moving from simply following steps to truly understanding the culinary science and the cultural context of your food.
The ultimate aha moment for you, the learner, is the ability to walk into any kitchen or read any menu with confidence. You know the why behind the method and the context of the dish. This knowledge lets you troubleshoot when things go wrong and innovate when things go right.
And that context leads us to our final provocative thought. Our sources highlighted how the world's most iconic dishes often arose from specific local needs or limitations. Tapas for efficiency, feijoada from necessity, seasonal Japanese purity. But today, hyperconnectivity, global migration, and ubiquitous technology like sous vide precision and the high-speed efficiency of the air fryer are dramatically speeding up the evolution of cuisine.
So the traditional lines are blurring faster than ever before. Chefs are constantly adapting, honoring history, while embracing this technological efficiency. If the banh mi was the iconic fusion of the last century, what will the next truly iconic fusion dish be? One that defines the next decade of global eating? And how will precision technology continue to challenge and redefine ancient techniques, making the complex art of the professional kitchen accessible to everyone? Think about that blend of efficiency and tradition and what those forces might create on your own plate tonight.